At the forum we have and
Please welcome to the main stage the former Secretary General of SEGIB and former President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Enrique Iglesias. Para hacer la introducción que el orador merece, to make the introduction that he deserves, we ask the Director of OECD Development Center. Cedemos la palabra al director del Centro para el Desarrollo de la OCDE, con ustedes, Pezzini.
good morning to you all. It's a great pleasure to be here, and particularly an honor and a pleasure to introduce to you to Enrique Valentin Iglesias Garcia. It is very difficult to introduce Mr. Enrique because there are no words that complete the full picture of the so special and wealth of human kindness that he has. He goes beyond the churches and iglesias, and I will give you 3 examples of what I'm saying. Iglesias churches by his last name. So he goes beyond of the singer Enrique Iglesias. So Mr. Valentin has a longer name, and in the second place, I don't know how he sings, but I know how he talks, and it's worthwhile hearing him. The second thing is that Iglesias goes beyond from the Iglesias of the BID. He was president of the Central Bank of Uruguay. He was also Minister of Foreign Relationships in Uruguay, executive of SECLAC, and executive of SEGIB. It is obvious with all this career, he has the position of a privileged observer of the Latin American life, and I would say worldwide. With his history that starts in Asturias, where he was born, in Onacaso, in a small town that now he have named the street after him, Enrique came to Latin America, and that's where he spent most of his teenager years. We can see a vision from him of what the well-being is on the public policies debate. And at the end, Enrique goes beyond the Enrique that is an economist. His work has also been characterized by a great passion. We know it. The economists believe that the driver of behavior in a great extent comes by interest. Well, Enrique has contradicted this vision because the passion, humanity, has always been a feature of his work. He knows that human nature is much more complex than that. And that is why I consider him as a militant of well-being and joyfulness, because his contribution for today's work will be fundamental. That's why I give him the floor so he can give his keynote speech for today. Thank you. Good morning to all of you, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. Governor, Governor of Morelos, Mr. Mayor, the director of the INEGI from Mexico, my dear friends. Really, Mr. Governor, it is a great pleasure for me to be back here because 2 great moments of my life have been held here. One was the passion of the Ibero-American summits back in 1991. And the other one was a very important moment in the economic history of Latin America back in the year 2000 and so, when the Inter-American Development Bank meeting was held here. In all those cases, we have really appreciated the beauty of this city, of this state, but especially the way you host people and make them feel them so good to all those that visit you. And we admire that human quality that you have. So thank you, Mr. Governors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jose Angel, I thank you very much your invitation for many purposes. First of all, because I can address some words to this important event, but for joining me in this great topic that the OECD is holding and that is being contributed by dear friends like Mr. Stiglitz. In a certain way, we are going into the womb of why we are growing in this world and what we feel when we are growing, not only materially speaking, but spiritually wise. I have seen the government was saying a while ago, and he is right, that in a certain way there is a growing concern of growth. Where do those goods go of all those products that we produce daily? If something is doing, the OECD is going to the roots of what is qualitative. Some of the analysis that we have seen, like Mario Pezzini had been working on the development center, they carried out a study on Uruguay, my country. And we could see the importance that it has to go beyond growth in order to see what people are feeling of what we are doing and how we can incorporate it and how they can benefit from it. That is why the approach that the OECD has had is quite innovative. I can assure you that I have some experience of decades that we are innovating in order to make people think of something that goes beyond measurement in order to understand the quality of that measurement. I think that we are entering in the development of humanity of what has historically been the feeling of charity and moving from charity to well-being. Charity has always been present in three main religions for ages. It is the son of love, but the feeling of solidarity goes beyond that because it is the son of justice. And in a certain way, we have started to see it with the Industrial Revolution, with the contribution of literates of the 19th century, with the contributions of the political parties that started to appear in 1930s on the democracy of Christians, ideological messages of Marx, and all the post messages. And I think everything was pointing to make a step forward. And this is what is calling for us today, specifically the works carried out by OECD. They have decided to organize it in three main chapters: material conditions, quality of life, and sustainability. And I will be referring to these three main points, and I will not take much time because you have many very important speakers after me and some other tasks you must attend to. How to grow on material conditions. We know a lot about that. We know perfectly well that there is not an easy path on development and there are no shortcuts for development. You have to be pragmatic, you have to be intelligent, and you have to be flexible. But we have started to understand the issues of the developed countries that may have to go through. And that goes through macroeconomics, a topic that has been present in the great causes of the great crisis that we have undergone these past years, goes through a legal and social grounds that enables you to have those investments to production. It goes through science and technology. In a certain way, it goes through a very specific relationship between market and state. And it is there, and I'm thinking about Latin America, we have a debate going on, but we will be reaching conclusions that I will give you in a while. There are new things. New things are going on worldwide in the first chapter that the OECD has established their works on. We have new powers in the world. There's a new distribution of in the powers of the world from North-South that we have never seen in the past. Geopolitical factors, what is going on in different territories that are influencing definitely in the way that economy moves worldwide. And we are experiencing another phenomena to which I will be referring in a little while that has a specific weight and will give us some surprises, that is financial. This is a chapter of how to grow and how to do it, starting from these elements, and it enables us to acknowledge that there are cycles. We had forgotten about cycles when I was young. It was a very important subject matter today. We should be thinking that there are cycles and that cycles move economics and challenge policies. A second very important chapter that is maybe the most new in the way that we incorporate it in the studies is life quality. And that we enter into complications because it's not only about objective factors that the ones that we can have in the first objective. And I think that we are entering fundamentally in subjective things, on convictions, on beliefs, feelings. It had been said by Mr. Governor a while ago. And I would highlight 3 or 4 items that come in quality of life. First of all, we have inequality, which is a predominant factor worldwide. Mr. Stiglitz has just mentioned it. It is an element that has been a part of the concern. It is at a worldwide. Why would it not be in a condition like in the United States where 1% of the population in the last 30 years double? It is from went to 10 to 20%. The government has said in Latin America, not at a country level, at a level of states, at a level of cities. How can you deal with that inequality when you have new public expression? That is the way that the international societies have, and especially in Latin America. And that is what is giving way to the movement of society that we had never seen before. Living in Europe, I have seen it these past years, but all this growth of those that are really upset, of those that feel occupied streets, that means that inequality is becoming unbearable, and as such will be influencing on the political decisions, and it will do so in the future. The world must do something about this topic. But I would say it is obscene when you see the proportion that it has. And the second topic, it is that in a certain way, the system appear, and I'm thinking in Latin America, the middle class arisal. Middle classes that have experienced an accelerated growth, 70 or 80 million people have moved into that middle class range, but that middle class is quite unhappy because they all increase, but say now increase less than the other, then I'm still unhappy. So the way in which that middle class is captured by consumism, especially for new generations, we have seen how the appearance of this middle class is a very difficult factor to manage because we are facing expectations, social demands, demand on quality. I had never seen that. When we were young, we went out demonstrating on the street so to have more investment on education and have more autonomy. 100,000 students asking for quality out on the streets. I had never seen that before. So that is telling us how we are facing a matter of quality that makes us to be attentive of how to face it. And a third chapter in this concern for quality is the relationship between democracy and development, the democracy and the state. We feel very good as Latin Americans because we had a hard time to leave back all those dictatorships, how it was hard for us to achieve freedom. And this should be highly appreciated. There's a work that you will learn about during this forum. That is Marta Lagos, who has joined us in this forum, that you see how we have the root of the value of democracy per se, and that is the freedom of expression, not only to vote, to put your confidence in somebody to govern you in a certain way will help us solve our problems. And that is the most important thing that we have in Latin America today, and how that relationship between democracy and the state has become in a fundamental relationship in order to manage change processes and face expectations and the feeling of the citizenship that sometimes are not reflected on statistics. That is cold and hard. I think that I have to mention another topic that is hitting Latin America and the whole world, and that is insecurity, violence. This that is hitting us every day in our faces when we read the dailies, and that we have seen our societies degrading in violence. What am I going to be talking to you in Mexico about this topic? It is one of the topics that qualify development, and I think, and people think, that there's a huge commitment behind of this. And I see another problem in addition to that, the excess of globalization, and I would see it in financial globalization. This mountain of liquidity that we see in the world through the actions of the central banks, the banks in the United States and Europe, are creating a very dangerous position, that huge of liquidity that has no eyes. I, as a public-private banker, I see a face and an eye when you negotiated in the past, but today we are facing a very dangerous thing, that is conducts that are not governed neither by faces nor eyes, but by computers that in a certain way are moving capitals that come in and out and alterate highly things. In the 90s, it was a decade sound stop because were capitals that were coming in and out. But how we put this in the global dimension when 10 investment funds manage assets by $19 trillion. You say Latin American produces only 7 per year. $19 trillion by that financial fund movement. How can we not be concerned about those financial issues that also hit us importantly to the structure of our societies? So when we talk about that bundle of topics, it is quite complex, and I appreciate that these are the main topics that the OECD is concerned about, because it will talk in depth the topics that we should be approaching. So this is a great package, the great bundle that we will be talking about. That is sustainability. This is a common value. Pope Francis has just said it vibrantly. The planet cannot longer stand consumption level that we have in developed societies. There's no way to exploit the planet in the way that we do it at present. We must do something about it. We need to be much more aware of it. When the Environment Summit took place in Stockholm, I did nothing about that topic, and it was when we were adding to Strong, that was the general director at the time, and to his actions. On June 1972, there were no NGOs for Latin America. Now we see thousands of institutions on the civil society that organize themselves to face this topic and become aware of it. The meeting in Paris in some more months will answer that topic. And I would say, why don't you see what the original populations of the Americas had? Because they defended nature, they identified the Pachamama, they understood that well-being in a certain way, live good, live in peace with nature, is a topic that Latin American had it with their original people. So the topic is not new. It comes from centuries ago. And at the end, I would say that in these three main concerns, I will draw 2 or 3 things. So many years in these topics, which are the things that I would feel the need to be, things to be done.
Education is number one. I think that it is of utmost relevance, and that for all these topics, we should start thinking about the quality of education as a starting point. And I'm saying this because I am not only thinking on the demands of society in terms of knowledge, but society needs people with values. People with values, that means basic values such as solidarity, tolerance, generosity, the capacity to feel the other, the possibility of seeing children as a result of these, not so much as a result of Facebook, of the internet, of shopping. No, we are talking about children that should be far more aware of a number of things. So education, I would consider that, of course, the quality of education and knowledge and values are at the core. That is number one. And number two, the state, as the governor of Jalisco said. And oftentimes that might seem opposite to what many of us thinks, but no, it's not. We're talking about a state that not only copes with the private sector and deals with economic factors, but that is an orchestrating force. So we need a state, and that is why I believe that we need to have an effect on that. That is number two. And number three would be trust. Of course, if there is no trust, there's no way to develop. We cannot open the door to all these things if trust is not strong, the trust in the public and private sector, in our behavior, because corruption, at the end of the day, is an evil advice and does not allow us to truly cope with the challenges, that does not allow us to share spaces. And we are currently seeing all the things that are bringing our wealth separately.
In a way to preserve life in society, it is based on my confidence on human beings. And I'm fully convinced that we can build a better society, fairer, safer, a society that will tolerate and will become richer from those differences, that will be supported in education and culture in order to go in depth to freedom and the initiative of each of its members. A society where the idea of development will have that goal of living fully and well-being. For all of those working in this field, I must say that our conviction that in order for that development to be lasting, it should be rooted on history, in the incomparable strength of society, in a society that has made peace with its own identity. It should be capable, be based on tolerance and respect in order to share and coexist with itself and with the others.
Therefore, our Latin American countries were built after our fight for independence and against colonial oppression. We should remember our heroes, the swords, the horses, the flags and the banners. Therefore, we think about all these things, and we think about new institutions as well. And I believe that this does not follow the rules, but that the true engine of history is the willingness of people to achieve greater freedom, better life conditions, better dignity, greater justice and equality. And as long as our production incorporates knowledge, then the greater the motivation for peoples who truly develop their whole potential. So I wish you luck, because we are in the threshold of a new era. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos.
Thank you very much, Enrique, Iglesias, and Mario Pezzini. And let's thank them very much. Let's give them a hand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to both.